Okay, everybody, tonight we are going over assignments number 3 and number 4, which are the clock. And I'm going to show you, I'm not going to give you the code, but I'm going to show you how to create an a digital clock, which is all you have to do for the assignment. So before we get started, I sort of want to take another look at the assignment so you know what you're looking at, and see if I can figure out how to zoom this in a little bit here. Let's see, open it up with a preview here. Here we go. So for part number 1, we are looking at first creating a program that includes a UI label showing a functional clock. We're actually going to build it tonight, so this will be a significant help to those people who are actually doing the assignments themselves. And then the second part of the assignment says create a stopwatch program. Well, I'm going to show you how to stop and start the clock. And we're also going to look at how to tell the difference between the start and the stop time. So we're going to do the calculation. I'm practically going to give it away for you. But I'm not going to do it the way the assignment says. So it should have 3 buttons. I'm not going to create 3 buttons, but we want to start, a stop, a reset, and a clock. But you can build your program from what we're going to do tonight. So what I've done is we're going to walk through. You're going to do it yourself. I'm not going to give you the finished code. And you're going to start it out, and then you can meet the assignment description by implementing the rest of the functionality. So the clock should show hours, minutes, and seconds. Well, we're going to do that. And view should begin with a start button highlighted. Well, I'm not going to do that. And other buttons not highlighted. And then pressing start should start the start of the clock. Well, we're going to do that. Disable and unhighlight the start button. I'm not going to highlight or unhighlight any buttons. You'll have to figure that out. And that's about it, actually. So you'll see what I'm going to do for you, actually. That's part number 1. Part number 2 is the date picker. It's the and then we're going to also look at this one too. There's 2 separate projects we're going to do. For the date picker, let's take a look here. This particular app is going to use a clock program that you've created in assignment number 3. I'm going to use a different program. Create a timer program. Well, I'm not going to do that. It should have 1 start and stop button, 1 picker, and 1 clock. I'm going to show you the picker. How about that? And the clock should show the hours, the minutes, the seconds, and the countdown. And the view should begin with the start button enabled. So you'll have to kind of tweak it. I'm not going to give you the assignment. You'll have to kind of tweak it to get it to work. So what am I giving you? It is located on bhacker.com, and it is in the 965 iPhone application development. If you go into where it says lectures, I just uploaded it a few minutes ago. It's a tutorial called Clock Example and a tutorial called Date Picker. If you click on it, it'll open it up into a text file. And this is what we're going to work on this evening. So if we can get this done, it'll be a significant help, I believe, to most of you for the assignments. And you know, the assignments are due a week from today. They're due next Monday. So let's start by creating a simple clock program. Open up Xcode and create a application. So create a new Xcode application. And make sure I have to put this on iOS. Make sure you're doing a single view application. So go ahead and select a single view application and hit next. I'm going to call this one Clock Example. We don't have to use the storyboard. I have this set for iPhone, and nobody's asked, but you can create iPhone or iPad or both if you want for your applications for this course. You can use the storyboard or you don't have to use the storyboard. Everything is up to you. I'm not going to use the storyboard for this example. Instead, I'm going to click Next. And I'm going to save it to my desktop. So now I have a clock example. And I'm going to click, first thing I'm going to do is click on the XIB file, because I always like to do my user interface first. And my user interface is going to have a label on it that's going to show the time. So I'm going to drag a label and I'm going to put it on the desktop. And I'm going to put this and make this a little bit bigger, actually. In fact, I'm going to make it real big because I want the time to look really big. So I'm going to change the font here, make it bigger to 20 something. Let me make it 30. And I'm going to put in here the time. You don't actually have to put a label on it. If you put the time on there, you know that's the label. Otherwise, it might look empty. It might look, you know, you can't see the label. So I just like put something on there. So let me go back to my instructions because I kind of worked ahead a little bit. So create a single, and this is what you've got in the text file. Add a label to the XIB interface file and wire it to the canvas. Well, I haven't wired it yet, so let me go ahead and wire it. Oops, let me get rid of this window. So I'm going to pull up my editor by clicking on my editor button, and I'm going to take this guy here, the label. I'm going to press the control button and I'm going to wire it. And I'm going to call this one here, what am I going to call it? Let's see. What do I want to call it? Doesn't really matter what I call it, but what did I call it in the code? Let's see. Just a second, I'm going to refresher through my code. Let's call it counter time. I'm going to call it counter time. Let's go call it clock label. I think we're calling it clock label. So I'm going to say clock label. And it's a UI label. So I'm going to press continue. And you have something like this, I hope, that shows up on the screen for your clock label. Now what else am I going to put on this thing? I think I'm going to have a button on here too. So add a label to the XIB interface and wire it to the canvas. Edit the controller.h file to add the instance of NSTimer. Okay, so we need to add this variable called NSTimer. So I'm going to cut and paste this from the text file here. Copy. So your end file should look like this here. This is the IB outlet for the clock label. So I have to add this variable here. So we're going to make an instance of this NS object called NSTimer. And I'm going to put it right up here. If I make this a little bit bigger here. Move this over a little bit. This is a variable, and so I'm going to put it right here. So now I have a my ticker. You can call it anything you want. So this is going to be called my ticker. So then I'm going to go back to my instructions here. So now that the my ticker variable is going to be responsible for updating the clock label. Okay. So now we're going to edit control viewer.h and add a run timer and a show activity method. So these declarations and functions we're going to write. We're going to implement them. So I'm on step number 4 right now. I'm highlighting the two method declarations and I'm copying them. And I'm going to paste them into viewcontroller.h. I'm going to put them right underneath my property here. So what do? We just, in the .h file, we just declared two new methods, run timer and show activity. Because we have to have a way of running the timer for this clock. And we have to have a way of showing the timered activity that has occurred every few minutes or so. So hopefully we're good this far. Switch now to the .m file. And in your .m file, you're not going to see any method bodies for the those two methods, but you're going to see this little warning up here is going to say incomplete implementation. Yeah, no, we have some method bodies that we need to put in here because remember we hard set this stuff here. We put this guy in here. We put run timer and we put show activity in here. So we need to implement them, which is what that warning's about. So I'm going to go back to my text file. I'm going to see what I have to do next. So I'm going to open up control viewer.m and add the method implementations that we just declared in the .h file. And here they are here. So I'm going to cut and paste the two of them, and then I'm going to talk about what they're doing. So go ahead and in step number 5, cut and paste the code that occurs between step number 5 and step number 6 there. And put that into, it doesn't matter where you put it, but I'm going to put it on the bottom actually. I'm going to put it on the bottom down here, and I'm pasting it. And I have put it into my .m file. And so if you didn't call your clock label, you're going to have a little error message that comes up. So you want to make sure that this clock label here matches the name of your label property that you put together. So what is this really doing? So run timer. So this starts the timer, which fires the show activity method every 0.5 seconds. So we're taking my ticker, which is an instance of this variable up here. So this variable up here was called NSTimer, and we made an instance of it, referenced it my ticker. Thank you. And over here we have my ticker is equal to NSTimer scheduled timer with time interval 0.5, which means every half a second it's going to increment a timer. The target is going to be self-selector, selector, show activity. This is the target is going to receive, and this is the other method that we added below here. So this method runs every 0.5 seconds because it's going to select show activity. And show activity is doing nothing more than putting the label, updating the label. And so it's the timer is created in the function run timer. And here it is here, show activity. So we're going to do this again, and we're going to call it show activity number 2, actually. And the user information, nil, repeats, yes, which means go ahead and repeat the timer for every 0.5 clicks. So we can kind of see this working. So NSDateFormatter, we're going to create an object called NSDateFormatter, which is really a string which is in a date format. So the clock is actually given for us in the NS objects here. So NSDateFormatter is equal to NSDateFormat allocate 1, initialize it, and then we have NSDate, which is the date. We're getting the time and date from the same component, and we're going to see the date picker has the time in it, which is why I'm going to show you that today, because most people can't figure out that the date picker is the time picker as well. So this will produce a time that looks like 12:15:00 p.m. Formatter set time style to NSDateFormatter medium style. You can change it to show the seconds as well if you want. So this sets the label, so clock label set text to formatter string from date. So take the date, convert it to a string, take the string and set it as the text on the label, which is interesting. Okay, so let's see. Right now it's all the pieces are there, but how are we going to get it to work? Well, we have to set the viewDidLoad method to load this sucker. So the runtimer method only has one line of code that's split into multiple lines, and that's this one up here, actually, the runtimer method. Oops, here it is. Which basically is going to essentially all that it does is call the show activity every 0.5 seconds. Show activity method formats the clock label so it looks like this, and then sets the current time. As mentioned, this method is called every 0.5 seconds. So we want to call runtimer after the view loads. This is the common method that the Xcode generated automatically. Okay, blah, 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 blah. The viewDidLoad method, we should be familiar with that already. We want to call self-runtimer. So I'm going to take in step number 6, I'm copying this method call here that's going to start the runtimer and put it in the viewDidLoad right up here. So I'm going to get rid of this little comment here, and I'm going to put it right here, paste. Let's say, for example, we want the clock to start with a mouse button click, or touch on a. We can take this line of code and start runtimer with a button click if we wanted to. We're going to see that actually in another example coming up. So now if I run the program, we'll give this a few minutes for it to load. Let me pull the air in. We have what we might expect. Is it 7:17:57? Yes, it is. 58:59. Voila, the mystery is gone. This is our analog clock. This is what you're doing for the assignment. Well, you have to create stop functionality. This is all, so now it says that assignment is actually fairly easy. But if you know about the time, I mean, if you know about these particular components. If you Googled it, you probably could have found it out too. But so here we have a working clock. So I'm going to stop the clock and show you a few more features of this. I'm not going to write the whole application for you. You have to write it. In fact, I'm not giving you a working program either. You have to follow the instructions to actually write it yourself. And you have to attend today to actually even know about this, because this is the only time I'm mentioning it. So for you guys who have shown good attendance or who are watching the video, you're the only ones who know about this. I'm not advertising it. Okay, so let's continue. Compile and run and see the clock working. We did that. Now we're going to add two buttons to the XIB interface. We're going to have a start button and a stop button. And then we're also going to add a label and wire the property as counter time. So start button, stop button, and counter time. Well, we're pretty much going to implement our, but I'm not going to disable and do all that other stuff. So you'll have to figure that stuff out. I can't take the entire mystery out of this for you. So I'm going to take a button here, I'm going to put it on here, and take another button and put it up here. And I'm going to take a label out of the library and stick it on here. And let me make this a little bit bigger. And this label here, I'm going to call this one the stopwatch info. I just put, you don't have to put a label on there. And I'm going to make it, I mean, you don't have to put a label on the label. I'm going to make this text a little bit bigger so we can see it on the screen. Maybe I should make it 30 just like the other one did. Yeah. That's pretty good. So this one here, you can arrange it any way you want. Change the background color. Actually, I always like to put the background color on green. I don't know why. I like green. My background color is green now. Shows up better in videos. Alright, so I'm going to put here a start, stop. Okay. And now I'm going to flip over here and make sure I got the .h file showing. And I'm going to maybe put this right above here. I'm going to make some room here actually. Put the IB actions here. So I'm going to right mouse click on start. I'm going to drag the touchdown event by pressing down the control button and clicking on the X. And I'm going to call this one start button. You can actually leave the ID, the type on ID, or you can change it to UI button. Either way actually kind of works. Why they left it on the default IB, I don't know. Alright, then I'm going to right mouse click on stop. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the touchdown event control, drag it over here. I'm going to call this one the stop button. Change the type to UI button. Press connect. Now I have to add the label. So now I have the start button, stop button. So I'm going to take the label. There's no action, and I'm not going to do anything with the label. I'm just going to use it as a property. So I'm going to press down the control button, and I'm going to just drag it over here. And what was I supposed to call it? I was supposed to call it something. I was supposed to call this stop. Oh, okay, so I might have to change the labels. This was supposed to be counter time. So the property is counter time. So let's see. Counter time. And it's a UI label. I'm going to go ahead. That's okay. So now hopefully your .h file looks something like this here. And I got start button, stop button, counter time. Hopefully we're good. So I'm going to flip it on over to the .h file. And I'm going to see on here I got synthesized counter time, clock label. Actually, it's kind of interesting to note. You always get a synthesize for each one of the properties automatically. So you don't never have to worry about that. If you put something in manually, though, you do have to write the synthesize manually. So the automatic thing only works when you wire the controls. But I should have on the bottom here, and I do, a stop button and a start button down here on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. Here we go. And I go back to my instructions. Let's see. Oh, it looks like I have to add something here. I have to add an integer, counter integer as a variable. Okay, so I'm going to, in step number 9, I'm going to copy this here. I'm going to go back to that .h file. So I'm going to go back to Xcode. I'm going to click on view controller.h. And right underneath where it says NS timer, I'm going to add an integer because I need to keep count of the time that's passed. And let me put a, oh, there we go. I wonder if that was a typo in the file here. Yeah, well, It was just integer counter. You need to put a semicolon at the end of that line. Because I need to keep track of the differences between the start and the stop, which is going to be the counter time. Okay, so now I'm going to take and look at the start clock and the stop clock, and I have one line of code here. I'm going to cut and paste the line of code, then I'll talk about what it is, what it's doing. It's the same line of code actually that we looked at already. This one's in the start. So I'm going to go to the start button in the in the .m implementation file. So now I have my clicker is going to be equal to NS timer, scheduled timer with time interval 1 instead of 0.5. I was going to keep track of 1. So it's not going to show my seconds, it's just going to show, or it's not going to show my milliseconds. Target self selector is the selector show timer activity. Okay. User info nil. Repeat yes. I thought I had saved, let's see, we'll take a look quick here. Take a quick peek here back at the text file. That's what's supposed to go into the start timer. What did I call the other one? Show timer activity? Show activity. The other one was called show activity. So I have created a new method now down here that I'm going to have to add called show timer activity. But before I do that, I want to get my stop to work. So I'm going to cut and paste. I'm still in step number 10. I'm going to cut and paste this code here and put it in the stop clock button. So down here in the stop button. And what is this code doing? So it's running invalidate, which means turn it off. Turn off my clicker, because they're still working with my ticker. My ticker is the clock variable. And then we're going to set my ticker to nil, which basically is going to reset it to nothing. And I still have that extra method because this method here, the show timer activity, needs to be implemented. And I don't have the show timer, do I, up here? I don't. So I do have it here. And I didn't, in my instructions, I didn't put it in here. So let's go ahead and add it. Void. It's going to be called show timer activity. Not in the instructions, actually. So that's really a bonus. Well, I think it's going to work anyway. It's just really bad practice. For every method that you have implemented in your .m file, you should have a prototype in your .h file that matches it. It's basically the interface to it. So that you should have matching sets. Okay, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to cut and paste and put the code in for the implementation now of show timer activity. So I'm going to copy this there, and we're still in step number 10. Copy. And I'm going to paste it in here, right underneath actually the stop button, but it really doesn't matter where you put it. And counter time, well, actually this method, I think I called it something else. What did I call it? Counter something? Counter time with a capital C. So I had to change the name of my label because I labeled it with a capital C instead of a lower c. So it depends on how you labeled your label in terms of what effect you're going to get. But what do we got now? So we have counter integer plus is equal to 1. We're going to set the counter integer, reset it to 1. And if hours is equal to counter integer divided by, make the hours integer divide by 3,600, the minutes, the seconds. So we're calculating out the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. And then we're going to print out the hours, the minutes, and the seconds. And we're doing that with a string with format. And then this is kind of like the printf function, actually. It's printing out variable number 1, colon, variable number 2, colon, variable number 3, colon. And the O2 is basically getting rid of the decimal precision, so we're just rounding up to the highest value, which is going to give us our hours, minutes, and seconds from counter integer as it's been incremented. Because every 1 second, I think that's a second, might be a millisecond, I don't know. It's actually calling this method show timer activity. So it's constantly incrementing this. And what it's going to do is essentially keep incrementing the output from the counter time. So if I run the program, we should see a working stopwatch actually. So now I have the stopwatch info because I haven't hit any buttons yet. So I'm going to hit start, and immediately I see this is actually running slower than this one up here because this is running at 1, this is running at 0.5 increment. And I'm going to see stop. So this guy stops because I set the timer to 0, but this guy's still running because the instance of the clock ticker that I'm using is same variable. I just have 2 instances running. This one's going to start it back up again, 13, 14, 15. So it's keeping track of total time. Stop. Start. What does that look like to you? A stopwatch? See how easy it is actually to implement? Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. Use the NS timer, essentially. So I'm not going to do all the functionality, you know. You're supposed to set this one so it disables and enables, and, you know. I believe you should be able to pull this information here to manipulate it any way that you want. So you can I don't have a reset on here. I can show you, but I'm not going to tell you because I can't get the whole thing away. How to do the reset? It's easy, actually. But you can figure that one out. And I'm not giving you this completed app either. You have to build it yourself. But we just built it. I just followed the instructions, so I know the instruction works. So. And don't tell your friends about this either. Only you guys who actually attend the course are getting this information. So you guys will be the only ones who are actually turning it in properly, hopefully. Well, not hopefully. I mean, but hopefully this will be a good help for you guys. So. Alright, any questions on the timer? This timer never stops, actually. It won't stop until the program stops because we have it set on the view did load. So the view did load is actually setting that. If we wanted to, we could not, if we, for example, let me shut this off for a second. Let me make some modifications to this real quick here. If I commented out this line of code here, and I run it, I'm going to see that the time is now up here. This one still works though. So if I wanted to, I could create another button and then put this self run timer, which means for self, start the run timer. And the run timer is this guy down here, which is kind of the same thing we did here for the button to start. But instead of calling it, we just ran my ticker. This code is in the method run timer. Run timer's up here. See this line of code and this line of code are practically identical. One line, except for this is 0.5 seconds. This is 1 second increments instead of 0.5 seconds. Because our calculation is giving us in 1 second increments, which is why we set the stopwatch to 1 second increments. Otherwise, we could do it, you know, we could switch it, make it 0.5 half-second increments to update it. But this one runs a little bit faster. So you can certainly figure out, hopefully at this point, how to start and stop and where to put the code around. So you could, you know, make it so that you press a button that said start, and put a clock up there, stop. So, and you're more than welcome to use this example for your assignment.
So in the assignment, we need to show this current time also?
Let's take a look at the assignment now that I've given you this example here. We're looking at project number 3. And, oops, you know what, I need to open it up from something out. I can make it bigger. Open it with preview. Oh, let's see. Make it a little bit bigger. Oops, that's a lot bigger. Maybe too big. I'll make it smaller. Alright, so what are you doing for this assignment? You're creating your first program that includes a UI label showing a functional clock. So that's that clock that shows up at the top of the screen. We did that, actually. We did it. Create a stopwatch program. We have pieces of it. We have the start and we have the stop button. We don't have a reset button. It should have 3 buttons, a start, a stop, a reset, and a clock. Well, we have the clock. It's that second label that's keeping track of our minutes. It only shows the minutes, actually. You can see that because we have oh, we don't, here, yeah. Here's the minutes down. This is the second label. So it stops and shows us the minutes. The view should begin with the start button highlighted and enabled, and the other buttons neither highlighted nor enabled. So you have to play around with the enable and the disable. And I'm not going to give that away, but you should hopefully be able to do that quite easily. Pressing the start should start and restart. We're not really restarting the clock. We're continuing the clock. So the assignment actually wants you to restart the clock. Oops, I have it running. See one, oh, it's still going actually. Stop. 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 It's not working. That's because this clock isn't working. I don't know what's wrong with this. Maybe I disabled it. I probably messed it up somehow. But anyway, this isn't restarting. It's keep picking up where it left off. Here, let me go back in and fix the code. I believe I need that timer. I don't have the timer starting. Time to start. Here we go. It was working a few minutes ago. I don't have it on the view did load. And I clicked the start button twice actually. So now we have this one, so now we have start. This should stop it. Yes, very good. But when I press start again, it starts with 4, 5, 6, stop. Not resetting it. So you can build that in. Not too bad. What else you gotta do? Let's see. Disable unhighlighted buttons. Okay, pressing the stop should stop the clock, disable the unhighlighted stop button, and enable the highlighted stop reset button. Pressing reset should reset the clock to 0, and disable the unhighlighted reset button and enable the highlighted button to work. So you're enabling and disabling buttons and you're resetting things to 0. You can figure out how to do that. That's the easy part. Did I answer your question? Okay. So most of the functionality is given for you if you follow that example, and you're more than welcome to follow that example. Just like the tic-tac-toe stuff, you're more than welcome to use that code we went over last week as well. So, questions about the first part? So let's take a look at the second part. This one I'm not going to do as much for you. Let's see. Open with preview. And I'm also going to leave some time today if you have questions or problems. We have a little tutorial we're going to leave some time in today's schedule for anyone who's got anything left that they want to, like, I don't know if you still have worked out your problems yet, but I will have some time at the end of the class, actually, because we'll probably end up early today. So you're going to extend the simple functionality clock for your iPhone app, one you just built in assignment number 3. And using the clock program you created in assignment number 3, you're going to create a timer program. Okay, you should have one start and stop button, one picker. I'm going to show you the picker, and one clock. We can do the clock, no problem. The clock should show days, hours, minutes. Days, hours, and minutes and seconds. So now we have days in here. And a countdown. And the view should begin with a start button and a picker. So I'll show you the picker. You use the picker to set the amount of time to count down. And use the start button to show the clock with the desired time and to start the countdown. The label should change to stop when the clock starts. So you only have one label. If you've done the tic-tac-toe game, you know how to change the labels. So you're going to implement what you did in the tic-tac-toe game. I'm not going to show you this because that's part of the tic-tac-toe game. Change the label so it says stop after you press it. So you only have one button. Use the stop button to stop the clock and reset it to 0. Well, you'll have that from your previous program once you implement it. Make your timer do something of your choice when the time is up. I'm going to show you how to put a message out to the screen. That might be what you pick. You might pick something else. Make your timer do something. Okay, so you can use assignment number 3 clock for this assignment and just add the additional features, or you can start fresh with a new clock program. So we're going to build a new program. Alright, so we're going to start fresh. We're not going to build exactly what that's asked for. Instead, we're going to do date picker. And when you pick a date, it's going to show you what date you picked. It's going to pop up a little message button and it's going to tell you. So we're done with this guy. So close this guy down and open up. Let's see what we got going on here. Oops, we don't want this one anymore. Open up the second one. It's called date picker that you're going to find out here. It's in the iPhone application directory under the examples, example projects. No, it's not in example projects. Where did I put it? I already forgot. Lectures? Okay, it's in the lecture. There it goes, date picker. Yeah, because I used it as a lecture instead of an example. So date picker is the one you want now. So I'm going to open this up with a preview. Oh, I don't want to open up with preview. Okay, I'll open it up with the text view, with the text wrangler. You can change the font to make this a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm doing here. If you don't have a text editor, nice text editor today, like text wrangler, so I totally recommend it. It does some funky like color coding, but it's still just a text editor. Okay, so now we're going to create a brand new, we're going to create this as a separate application, and we're going to call this one, and we're going to create a UI picker in this application. It's going to be a UI date picker. It's going to have the date and the time on it. So we're going to open up a single view application and call it date picker. So I'm going back to Xcode, and I'm going to create a new project, and the new project is going to be a single view application. And I'm going to press on next, and I'm going to call this one my date picker. And press next. And create. Okay. So I'm going to click on the XIB file. And in my library, I'm going to type in the word date. And I get date picker. No brainer. So I'm going to drag the date picker and stick it on the canvas. I'm going to change the background color here because everything I have is green. So this one's going to be green too. Now you can probably put a button on your program because your program needs a button on it essentially. I wonder if I'm going to have a button on this one actually. No, I'm not going to have a button. On the view did load, however, I am going to create a new instance of NSDate. I'm going to call it NSDate now because we need a countdown, but we're going to, instead of going to do a countdown, we're just going to keep track of today's date or now's date. So we dragged a date picker object from the library and we placed it on the canvas, and we need to wire the property to the .h file as well. So I'm going to go back to Xcode. My lovely little date picker. Actually, I think this can go smaller, can't it? Let's see. Yeah, it can go smaller. I kind of like it big, though. So, it looks like a slot machine, doesn't it? Yeah. Alright, so I'm going to click on the code button here. And if I right mouse click on it, I'm going to notice a bunch of stuff on here. I have events as well. I'm not going to actually use the event, but you're probably going to use the events, huh? I know, I know. I'm giving you a hint here. When you click on the item in the event, you can actually do something like set your timer to count down from a particular date that you pick in the date picker on a change the date event or something of that nature. We're just going to take what's on the property and read it out. So we're going to, anyway, you may use on-click events if you wanted to. Instead, I'm just going to press on the control button, click on the date picker, and wire the property. What do they want me to call it? They want me to call it, did I put it in here? Wire the property. Well, let's see. This is going to be the alert box, and the alert box is going to use message selected from date picker. Let's call this date picker. Date picker with a lowercase d and a capital P. Otherwise, I have to change it later. So I'm going to call this date picker. Oops, if I spell it right. Picker, P-I-K-E-R. And it's a UI date picker. You don't call it with a capital D. If you copy this name, Xcode gets confused. It'll let you use the property just fine. But if I typed in here UI date picker and copied it completely, or called it touch button or touch down or something, Xcode will definitely, it's kind of a bug in Xcode. It'll definitely get confused. So I'm going to call it date picker. I'm going to press connect. So now I have a property for my date picker. Alright, so now I'm going to switch over to the .m file. Get rid of this side piece so I can make some more real estate on my screen here. And what do I got going on here next? You wanted me to put a button on there? Well, okay, I have to go back. On the view did load, I guess I could have put the button on there too. The order of these instructions is kind of messy. But on the view did load, I'm going to cut and paste, and I'm in step number 3 right now. I'm going to copy this view did load text, and I'm going to talk about it as soon as I put it in. I'm going to go back to the view did load here, which is right here. Let me get rid of this little comment here. I already have a super view did load on here. For some strange reason, I always like to put it at the last. I always like to put it at the bottom. Some people actually like to do the opposite and put the super view did load on the top, because super view did load is actually calling the NS object or whatever we inherited from that view load first. So technically, I guess it's more proper to put it on the top, but it doesn't matter. It works either way because we're not really doing anything to the view did load. So what do we have here? We have an NS date. This is a date format, NS date now. So we're making a new instance. We're running alloc and init. Date picker set date. Well, set date to now, which is our date. And then animate yes. We'll see how we're going to animate in a few minutes. It means it just moves around a little bit. And then super view did date, call the, view did load, call the super method. So really the only 2 lines of code we're adding is the date instance called now, and the date picker, just set it to now. So date picker is going to go for now. So we actually have to set the date to something. So drag a round rectangular button from the library and place it on the window. Wire the IB outlet touchdown event to button pressed, or anything you want actually. So this is not going to do the countdown functionality for you. I made sure of that. So I'm going to go in here and put in button, round rectangular button, put it on the canvas here. I'm going to call my button select. When I select the date and I press this button, it's going to take it and get the date that's in this picker. You're going to need to take the date that's in this picker and do a countdown from it to something to create a countdown activity. So it's not going to do everything for you. Wire the IB action. So I'm going to switch this back over to the .h file. And I'm going to right mouse click here. And I'm going to do the touchdown. You can do the touch inside or one of the other ones if you want. Pressing down on the control button, dragging it to my code. I'm going to call it button pressed. And change the type to IB button. And I press connect. You can actually see, I don't know if I pointed it out before, but you can actually see the connection in here as well. So. Okay, so now we have the button in there. So I'm going to go back to the code here. And this is what it should look like. Yes, we have the IB action in there. So now on the viewcontroller.m, I'm going to add the functionality for the button. So I'm just going to cut and paste this code in here. This is step number 5, which is actually the last step. Cut and paste, put the code in, oops, for the button. So I'm going to go back to the .m file. Make this a little bigger so I can see it. There we go. Here's my button, it's on the bottom. Paste. So now I have NS date selected. Well, what's the date selected? Well, we have the date now, which is also an NS date. So we're getting date now. We're going to get the date of right now. We're going to get the date that's selected. And then this one, what we'll do the countdown, essentially, if you wanted to do it that way, which is what you've got set up already. So the date picker date, which means put it on today's today's date. And a string message and a string alloc, create an NM string out, so which is going to be the date, the date and time you selected is, and then whatever selected is. So what's basically going to happen is it's going to pull the time and date from the date picker and put it in this string called message. Now I'm going to create a UI alert view, and the alert is going to have the date and time you selected with a message, which is the date and time you selected. With a cancel button title, yes, I did select that date. And then alert space show, which is going to show the alert. So when your countdown is over with, so you can pick a date in the future, take the date now, select the date in the future, put a label out there that does the countdown for you. When the countdown hits, throw up the window. And the window is going to be this little message window. So now if I run the program, you're going to see this functionality actually. Functionality is not going to do everything for you. It's not going to do the countdown for you. So this is animated, so you see it move? That's what it means by animation. So I'm going to pick Sunday. I'm going to go select. Time and date selected. The date and time you selected is the 20th. Oh, wait a minute. What's today? The 21st? 20th. Did I pick today? No, I picked the 19th. My program's wrong. Let's go this way. Oh, you know what? Let's do this way. 5:50. 50. 8:21. Oh, it's off by a date. What is my date? Good question. My clock is off. No? Today is the 20th. Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to pick today, and today's the 20th. Okay, so let me start this over again. I believe my clock, you know, it might not be considering leap year. Today, 7:51 p.m. 2:51:22 on 8:21. The date's wrong. What time do you have? Is it working? Oh, you have a reset up on your phone. All right, so no promises on the correct date. Let's take a look here, actually. Date now.
Mine is also 2:47.
2:47?
2:47.
Interesting. Does it say 8:21?
It is saying 8:21.
Yeah, today's 8:20 though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say there's a bug in there, actually. Either that or it's on the wrong. Oh, you know what? It's on East. It's GMT. It's not on California. It's 2 in the morning, so that's 6 hours ahead. Is it GMT? It's on GMT time. It's not on. The default's not California Pacific Standard Time. I can guarantee it. So you have to convert this actually if you want to convert it, or you can work with GMT time if you want. Just know you're not getting California Standard or Pacific. You can change your time zone. Actually, you can change the time zone. I'm not going to show you how to do it, but you can easily change the time zone for the date picker. And you can actually change it for the app too. It's going to be in the it's going to be a property that you can set actually. In fact, let me just take a quick look here. Yeah, it's on GMT time. I failed to even remember that. Maximum time, minimum time, timer. Count timer. Is there a set time zone in here too?
Yeah, but I don't know what the populator is. Set time zone.
Where do you, locale? Countdown timer. Huh?
The set a date picker, set time zone.
Oh, set time zone. Yeah, you can do that. You'd have to go online to pick out the time zone. So, okay, that's one of the things. Actually, I switched this guy here to the hours and minutes. So, if you wanted to make it easier for yourself, you don't even have to deal with the date. You can just go hours. Like, you can do this if you want to, for example. 19 hours and 53 minutes is the time right now. So you can change the hours and the minutes. And you're still going to get the same date because today's the date. But you don't have to print this out. You don't have to use this stuff either. So this is 2:53 in the morning. 1900 now. Actually, this is interesting. Okay. Anyway, set your time zone if you want it to be correct. So, intervals, 1 minute, 2 minutes, date. Oh, you can set the date. Let's see. You can change the date on your date thing as well if you wanted to. Change the date. Don't know if you'd really want to do that because then you're hard setting it to a date that shows up. If you were making an app that did like an alarm clock or something, you can always set it to like 12, 12, 12, 12. You know, like those other alarm clocks. And then let the user set the alarm clock too. That wouldn't be too user friendly. Anyway, the purpose of this tutorial is to basically orient you to the concept of the date picker and the button, and to show you another instance of this alert, the alert show. So another thing I'll point out for those of you who missed the last class meeting was out here at the bhacker.com workshops website / digital apps. There we go. I put together some iPhone apps that we ran through tutorials for the digital arts program recently, but some of you might actually be interested in some of these. It's not going to really help you with the assignments, but it might help you explore some of the features of the iPhone a little bit more. There's one in here that does the splash screen animation toolbars. There's one in here that also does those pop-up windows, like the alert box I just showed you a few minutes ago, but I just showed you the alert box, so you don't necessarily need to go here for that. Audio, video. If you've missed any of the class meetings, I've actually gone over some of these as well in this class. So in terms of your, I showed this to the people that were here at the last class meeting. So it's on bhacker.com / workshops, DA apps. This isn't going anywhere. It's going to be up here. So if you have the time, it's the best way in terms of learning. And these are all just like what we just went through a few minutes ago. They're text files where you can cut and paste the code and use it as an example. And you can build it apps from scratch. If you don't want to build the apps from scratch, you can get the finished products right here as well. There is one in here if you're having problems with the multiple screens. There's one in here that does the tab view for you. In fact, if you come down here, you'll see tab view. Do not turn this assignment in, however. Make your own multiple screen. So for those of you who can't remember the last assignment, I just went over the... Are there any questions, though, before I continue on the date picker? You don't have to add any libraries or anything. You just drag the date picker from the library, standard library, and put it in there. If, how did this get opened? Let's see. Let me close the simulator here. I believe that was the end of my instructions on this one. The last but not least assignment for this particular course is number 5. And number 5 is the multi-view. So let's take a look real quick. Unless we have questions on the date picker. That's number 6, by the way, or number 4, excuse me, number 4. So what we just did today was looked at 3 and 4. You can use them as a base, but however you need to finish the app to meet the requirements of the assignment. I'm going to look to make sure that you didn't give me just the base. Because I know some students will go, oh look, it's done for us, and just give me my tutorial back. Let's see if you can finish it as well. Give it the necessary, and that's basically a no-brainer because it's the enable and the disable on the buttons actually. So. Alright, last but not least, assignment number 5 is the multi-view program. We're going to create a program that involves multiple views. So you have freedom in what you want to do for this. The main program should contain a grid of subviews, which can animate the flip around to reveal the front and back views. So, you know this is one suggestion, you don't have to follow it. But you know how you play solitaire? You know, you click on a view, a little card. You could take the card and flip it around. Earlier in the course I showed you one that was called an adventure game. And the adventure game I actually built for the digital art students. I took actually our example. Oops, let me bring up the adventure game actually, because this is the best way of showing you what I mean by a view. Workshops, I just had that up too. Workshops. Adventure game storyboard number 10. I actually showed a different version of this game that had views on it, so I'm going to create the views for you and show you what I was talking about there, and then I'll show you this better version using the storyboard. So a view is the concept here, multiple views. So in the assignment here, to flip from a front view to a back view, should be contained in a container. Well, I'm going to show you a container in a few minutes. View that sits above the root view. Well, a tab bar view. What is it? Nice container view. A storyboard is actually a container view. You can use any theme you want and create any type of program that you want as long as it uses multiple views. So it's your opportunity to design or implement anything you want. So let me show you the views on steroids. And I'm not kidding when I say this. This is views on steroids. This is the adventure game, for those of you who missed it. And do not turn in the adventure game. Write your own app. I'm going to zoom out here so you can see what I'm talking about. Those are a bunch of views, by the way. And they have view controllers. View controller, view controller, view controller. There's no root controller, however. If you want to do something like this, that's fine. This is using a storyboard, and I'm going to show you how to assemble this in a few minutes. But when you run the view, here's what happens. You have one screen that leads to another screen, that leads to another screen, that leads to another screen. So, this is digital art. So, I'm missing something. I had something up here. Oh well. See how the views change? Eat the mushrooms. No, don't eat the mushrooms. No, whatever. It's a little game. Which is kind of interesting because this didn't show. I probably messed something up in here. But anyway. This is the concept of the, and let me show you how to build this actually. I'll even take this a step further here. Open up a new Xcode project, create, and call this one. This is going to be using a single view application, and it's going to be iOS. Next. This one we want to use the storyboard, so click on Use Storyboards. And call this one a sample app. Or, I don't know, I can't put a space in here. I call it anything you want, actually. Next, create. So now I have a main storyboard up here with a view controller. I'm sorry? If it's the older version, you have to do it manually. You know what you do here? You have to go down here and go View Controller and add it like this. In the older version that didn't have storyboards, you have to do it a different way. If you have the older version, let me show you something. UI View. You can take a view and stick it inside of another view. So now I have two views in here. The way I can tell that is I can go in over here and I can go, look, I have a view inside of the view. And then I can hide and show, set visibility to the views, hide and show the views. If I've got the newer version and I have a storyboard, actually I'm going to make this view back here. Let's see. I'm going to click on this view. I'm going to change the background color. And then I'm going to check this view and change this background color to orange. There we go. So you can see I have two views, one overlapping the other. If I put a button as an example on this one, button. I put a button on the first view. I can press the control button and go over to the second one and do a modal. So what I did here for those people who weren't paying attention, I put a button up here. And let me put a label on here too. I'm going to call this View 1. And I'm going to call this go to view 2. Here, I'm going to say view 2. Click on the button. You're not going to go like this. You're not going to do the events. Instead, you're going to connect the two views. So click on the button, press the control button on the keyboard. Click over here and press modal. Modal means bring it up in the same window. So if I do this and I go modal, see I have a connection here. So if I make this small and I stretch these guys out a little bit, you see I got this little connection that's going on. So if I run this app right now, I have one view that goes to another view. But I don't have a centralized controller. It's going to run, hopefully. There we go. So now I can go view 2. Look at that, I have view 2. I have no back button, so I can't get back. But if I run it again, actually here, let's do this.
You can adjust it just to go back.
Yeah, let's just adjust it here. Put a button on here. Did you say do what?
Just like scroll.
Oh, a gesture?
Yeah.
We're asking for more stuff. Yeah, you have to add a gesture controller to this thing.
Oh, it's like an object.
Gesture here.
Oh, that's it. Swipe.
Add it to the view. And then, well, we have to program it though. Modal back to here.
Yeah.
So what is this one going to be? This is going to be, well, I can't do a gesture on the computer though. Actually, it's an interesting question though. Let me see. I'm gonna do this button here too, just to make sure I can get something to work. But this is the 3-finger gesture is what I put on here actually. I can't do the gesture with the mouse. But if I put my 3 fingers on here, because I did this one here, provides recognition for a tap gesture. No. Land on the view? No. The button's going to work. If I loaded it on a real phone, I pick out the gesture that I want, and if I highlight my mouse over here, I can get the more information on the gesture. No, it's supposed to pull up a... Yep, there it is. Provides recognition for double tap gesture, which lands on the view. For example, it recognizes double tap gestures or tap with multiple touches. And then we have pinch gesture, rotation gesture. So all you do is add the gesture to the controller. Right mouse click, drag the selector. Actually, we don't want this one here. I'll show you this one here. Right mouse click. This one I've got the modal to this guy here. So actually you just press, I didn't actually even have to press the control key. Push to there. So it's going to the other view controller to connect the guys. But I don't have a phone here. I didn't even bring my iPad actually, so I couldn't even do it on that. But the gesture would send it back, like a swipe to send it back. So, or you could put a button on there. A little low-tech way of doing it. So that's the multiple views with no view controller. So let me show you something else. You can throw that one away. Actually, I'm going to throw this one away and this one away. I got that off the website. So let's see, quit this for a second here. I'm going to bring up Xcode. I'm going to create a new project. This one I'm going to create is called a tabbed application. This is what we did on the first day of class, by the way, or second day of class. We did one of these. So next, tab, example. Here's another way you can do it. You don't have to use the storyboard on this one, actually. You can get away without using the storyboard. If you don't have this, you're not going to have the same, if you don't have the same version, you're going to have different project types. You'll have to play around with the different project types. I believe there's a tabbed example. This one has what's called the controller on it. So if I go into, say it has second view controller, first view controller, second view nib, first view nib, there's actually a tab controller in here. But I didn't actually create the storyboard option, so I don't see it. I just see second view, first view, oops, hello, first view controller, second view controller. So when I run it, I should have the buttons on here first, second. Which is multiple views. But let me show you something different though. If I add the storyboard, I get the visual controller and then I can add them all together. So if I go in here and create another new application, and then I create a tabbed application, and I click on the storyboard option, and this time I'm going to select tab me. There you go. Let's just call it something else so I make sure I don't overwrite what I wrote before. Now if I look at it, I've got the main storyboard. And the main storyboard here, let me zoom out so you can see what this looks like. A little bit easier to look at, because watch this. I can go in here and go view controller, put another one in here. Alright. Click on this guy, control drag it to this, oops. Click on this guy, control drag it to this guy. And let me show you the before and after before I do this. See, I have 1, 2. This has a first and a second. And it goes to the first and the second view. So I can click on the window, press down the control key, do a no, that's not what I wanted to do. I want to do it backwards. Hold on one second. Let me delete this guy. Hold on. There we go. I want to take the tab controller and go opposite, drag it to the view, let go, and select the relationship. Now I have the third one down here. Because what I did was actually created a push back to the controller and put it on as a second view. So now I have it here. So just to repeat, just to show you what I did, is I put another view controller out here. This is going to be my third one, or fourth one. Click on this guy, control drag it to this guy, and do a relationship view controller. And now I have 4 of them. And then I can click on this guy here. Or I can actually, let me click on this guy here and call this one fourth. And it changes to fourth over here. And then what's this one, third? So now when I run it, well, there's nothing on the views, but I have the same, it's the same look, same feel, same app, but I have multiple views, and it's using a common controller, which is really what the assignment actually asked for. But you can do it without the common controller, no problem, if you use the storyboard. So we have first, second, third, but there's nothing on the third, fourth, but there's nothing on the fourth. So you could load pictures, text. Actually, if you wanted to be simple, you could just say, hey, this is the first view, second view. Put something on the third view so I know it's the third view. Put something on the fourth view. The theme can be your own kind of thing. It's your opportunity to play around with it, so you can actually kind of be creative if you want to create something interesting. But that's really the concept of the fourth assignment, excuse me, the fifth assignment. You could also take it to another direction if you wanted to. Create a new project. Let's see. Multiple detail application, empty application, utility application, and add pay. I don't know. I'd probably stick with the tab application if I were you, probably. Like, you know, actually, if you haven't done this yet, create an OpenGL application. OpenGL. You might find this actually kind of interesting. This kind of ties in with what we were talking about in the Objective-C course today. So, what we're looking at is just one view controller. But if you run it, you can see this interesting, because the view did load is going to put an object out there. It's going to put a square, and it's going to rotate it. Or 2 squares, actually. Interesting. One of the projects does 1. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a feel for the OpenGL. It's not any of the it doesn't meet any of the assignment descriptions, but if you're interested in taking this a little bit step further after the course, basically what we're looking at here is the cube, and we're looking at really OpenGL C code, and the C code is being used in here. So if you have any familiarity with OpenGL, you can actually use it in an iPhone app without very much work at all, actually. It's the same OpenGL that you may have used with C or with other programs. Problem is most people don't get any exposure to OpenGL. So, Alright, well that is what I wanted to show you today. On Wednesday. So now you can have time, if you want. I'm not going anywhere. We can troubleshoot problems. I just thought I'd leave some time today for anyone who wanted any help. We can troubleshoot problems and stuff like that. On Wednesday we're going to do final exam review, and I'll leave some time as well. So you should be like cranking out all those apps right now, all those projects, because all those projects are due by Monday night at midnight, a week from today. So bring in your problems on Wednesday. After we do the final exam review, we'll troubleshoot problems again. So, and if I think of it, maybe I'll come up, or if you have any special requests on anything you want to see, you're having problems with something, and you want to see a special demonstration of something, or you want another tutorial on something, let me know, and we'll put that together. Because this came out of yesterday. This came out of last Wednesday's discussion about the clock. Someone wanted to see the clock, so we did the clock. I don't know what else I can show you, though. I pretty much have everything down. I could show you more math calculations. I could show you how to do counters and stuff, but you should be able to figure that out, though, I think. I don't know. Okay, so I'm going to end this video. Wednesday's final exam review. The final exam is a week from today. Just remember that. Any questions? No? Okay, I'm going to end it.